We're going to be talking about a lot of highly sensitive, disruptive, upsetting subject matter relating to SA. And if you don't want to hear about that or you got children, perhaps this is not the episode to listen to grandma's Thanksgiving dinner with the kids in the car. Just use your discretion on that. Welcome, everybody, to another full episode of the Tilted Lawyer podcast. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the current federal investigation into Sean Diddy Combs and some of the civil lawsuits that have been created as a result of an act that was passed in the state of New York that opened up the statute of limitations for past and prior sexual claims. There was a federal raid. There's allegations of sexual. There is allegations of a possible Rico investigation. We're going to talk about most of it, if not all of it, hopefully all of it, on this episode coming up next. Whatever you might be going through and wherever you might be, this is Omar Serrato with the Tilted Lawyer podcast. I'm here to take your mind off of things. Yes, I'm an attorney. No, I'm not giving you legal advice. We're going to sit and talk like people, as these are the candid thoughts of one practicing attorney, and it's after hours. So have a seat, feel free to have a drink, and join me. Let's get started. And here we go. So Sean Diddy Combs has been raided federally as of a couple of days ago, as of the recording of today's episode. And there is video out there of his children literally in handcuffs. Now, I don't believe that they were arrested. I think they were just detained, but they literally just SWAT team federally ran into his house. I mean, like a movie, and found a bunch of stuff, illegal firearms and different things. But Eliana, what is your knowledge or experience of Mr. Sean Diddy Combs?
I know that he's a rapper. He was pretty famous in the 2000s.
Did you listen to his music?
I did not. I've mainly known him as J-Lo's boyfriend at some point.
Yes.
When she was
25 years ago.
Pretty famous about wearing that green dress.
The green dress. My impressionable years.
Yes.
I remember the dress well.
And that's about it.
Yes. And so I had a personal experience with Sean Diddy Combs. So back before I was the Tilted Lawyer, back before I was a lawyer or anything, I worked as an intern for a hip hop magazine called The Spotlight. Now, back then, like today, everybody has like podcasts and YouTube channels that they're out there, and everybody puts up their own stuff. Well, back then, the functional equivalent of that was people wanting to start up magazines, newsletters, because back in 1999, 2000, the internet was not really a thing. It sort of was a thing, but it was like dial-up internet, AOL. Gosh, what was the other ones? I forget, but it was literally, you had to have like a dial-up modem, and there was no like fast, if you wanted to download an image of anything, it took like 35 minutes to download a single JPEG, whatever. Times have advanced since then. But yeah, back then, magazines were all the rage as a, somebody that wanted to start up a news outlet. So I wrote for one of them. It was called The Spotlight. They later changed its name to The Cipher. It's long since been defunct. And it was basically a hip-hop dance magazine. Now, and imagine me being a part of, I'm like the most boring guy ever. I'm writing for but I was like 18, 19 years old. And what I would do is I would basically go to these hip hop clubs and write reviews about them. What was the ambiance like? What was the music like? What was the dance scene? How were the people? What were the amenities? And give them a rating and write articles about it. Okay. And then on occasion, they would send me to like radio stations to interview folks like Big Les. I got to meet Mary J. Blige. I didn't get to interview her, but they would send me like these American dance competitions from the 90s.
Okay.
And it was like pop locking and break dancing and all this stuff. I'm covering it like it's ESPN. It was another life, I know. But on occasion, there's one time where I ran into Sean Diddy Combs. He was Puff Daddy back then, I think. Yeah. And I waved to him and said, "Hey, what's up, Diddy?" or some stupid thing that I said. And he didn't even acknowledge me. He just walked by, and that was it. And it was like, well, that felt great. That was my one personal experience with him. But he has been sued by a number of different people. So there was a act passed in the state of New York the New York Adult Survivors Act. In essence, what it was there was a statute of limitations barring adults from bringing complaints of a sexual nature against, past a certain time. This act basically opened the door for a very specific period. I think it was like a year or 13 months or something like that. And in the course of that, these adults are bringing up allegations from years and years ago where they would have previously been barred from bringing those complaints. So I had a case like that. Matter of fact, because California sort of has its own statute. It's not really it's not a specific time period. It's just, look, if you were the victim of sexual abuse as a child and you want to bring those claims as an adult, you can. You're no longer time barred from doing that. And I actually litigated a case where the plaintiff, who was basically alleging that when he was 7 years old, and my client, the defendant, who was 11 years old, when they were children, he was abused in a sexual way. And, 25 years after the fact, he wanted to talk about it. And he was suing for like $5 million or some kind of ridiculous number. And that lawsuit was very quickly dismissed. And that was the end of that. But no, those claims are real. Now, the basis, interestingly, of his allegation in that case was he wanted to bring the claims on the strength that he was hypnotized and uncovered all of these repressed memories that led him to now believe that, oh yeah, I was a victim when I was like 7, and now I'm 25 years old and it's affecting my life, and I can't get a job, and I can't function in society. I can't get a wife. I can't have normal relationships because of what happened 25 years ago from these repressed memories. So the lawsuit was quickly dispatched.
Who told him to get hypnotized?
Well, he had some stupid attorney that wanted to take up the case, and well, she did not like me by the end of everything.
No, but I mean, I'm guessing that he got hypnotized. That's when he learned of the incidents, and then he decided to bring the action. Well, what made him get hypnotized in the first?
Well, he claims that in the course of therapy, many therapy sessions, these repressed memories came about.
Do they have a disclaimer in those hypnosis therapy sessions where you might discover things that you...
I don't know if they have a disclaimer. I've certainly never seen one. So I don't think that Diddy Combs is going to get off nearly as easily. So there's been a lot of parallels between this case and the R. Kelly case that, from 2-3 years ago. Now, I think the main difference is, and although there are some crossover allegations against Diddy Combs, and important to note that he hasn't been charged with anything yet, all of this is allegations, speculation, conjecture, but he is the subject of a federal investigation. There's probably charges coming. He just hasn't been charged with anything yet. But in R. Kelly's case, all of this stuff was of children, as minors, for the most part. I think there were some exceptions. Like he married Aaliyah when she was like 14 or 15 or something. Aaliyah, R&B singer from...
Yes, I know who she is. I just don't remember how you say her
Dominic, do you have any idea who that is?
Kind of, a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm so old, man. Like all these people that were like so like in the pop culture are just expired now, I guess.
Expired.
You know what Dominic just told me? He said that like he's not really a movie guy, but he really enjoys a good rom-com. I'm like, on purpose? What do you mean you enjoy rom-coms? And then he said, well, you got to have your rom-com game on point when you take these ladies out on dates. And they're like, well, if you do that, they might question your sexuality, because most men...
I think only probably men from your era will
probably, you're right.
The sexuality, not
I would not. I question his taste.
There you go.
I speculated that maybe women would. I don't know. Maybe they like it. Who knows? Maybe Dominic's been right all along. And I have been the one to have been misguided. So let's talk about some of these allegations. Cassandra Ventura. Are you familiar with her? She goes by the R&B name Cassie.
I have no idea. Cassandra is my great step-granddaughter's name.
Well, I don't think that they're related, if I'm being honest.
I don't think so. No, but I wonder now if my stepdaughter
knows who she is?
Yeah, she likes hip-hop and all that, so...
I have no idea who Cassie is. I've never heard a song. If I saw her on the street, I'm looking at a picture of her right now. I mean, I have no idea. She could be like Rihanna or like a Tyra Banks kid or something. But yeah, I've never heard of her, but she is an R&B singer. Her full name is Cassandra Ventura. She filed a lawsuit in 2023. And by the way, I'm reading off of an article that we're going to have sourced down in the link. It's from The Independent. It's an article titled, "What Are the Allegations Made Against Sean Diddy Combs?" But she, R&B singer, filed a lawsuit in 2023 in alleging specifically that she was trafficked. Why is that significant? Because Homeland Security is investigating Sean Diddy Combs. And what do you know about Homeland Security?
Not much.
They mostly get involved in like immigration matters.
Yeah.
And they are specifically in charge of investigating international crimes.
Okay.
So there's going to be international implications to all of this. Her lawsuit claims that Combs brought the singer into his ostentatious, fast-paced, and drug-fueled lifestyle not long after she met him and signed her to his label in 2005 when she was just 19 and he was 37, which so far, none of that is really remarkable. Yeah. That's kind of the industry, and I'll tell you a whole story about that later. But Miss Ventura said that the pattern of abuse began as soon as their relationship started and that she was trying to end it in 2018. He forced himself into her LA home and her. Just full stop. Her. The lawsuit against Combs was settled a day after she filed it for an undisclosed amount of money. It's always undisclosed. Miss Ventura told CNN she had chosen to resolve this matter amicably, while Combs' attorney said the settlement was in no way an admission of wrongdoing and didn't change his denial of the allegations. So I will say, point blank, that of course Combs has attorneys and they're making all the stupid statements that people do. Yeah. I cannot wait to get in court so we could disprove these heinous allegations against my client. This is nothing more than a witch hunt. And at the end of all of this, we will see who the truth tellers really are. Or just something like that. It's gotten to the point with these statements that are put out by attorneys where it's like, I just stop listening. As soon as they open their mouth, it's almost like tears on the witness stand. As soon as I see somebody start crying on the witness stand, it's like, oh, really? You know? And then like 30 seconds later, they're perfectly fine, like nothing happened. And then you ask them a question that hits home, and then it's like, oh, the water works again without the water, you know?
Without the water, yes.
Yeah. So these full-on are denying the allegations, and they settled it for, let me ask you a question. Okay. I'm not asking personal questions. These are hypotheticals. Let's just say hypothetically, you had an encounter with the gentleman that you really regret. It wasn't the best. You just didn't like it, and you wish that it never had happened. At what point in your mind would that raise to the level of, well, it was a sexual assault? And I'm asking you this for a very specific reason. I'm not saying that this was like a false allegation or anything, but my question is simply this. Let's say that it wasn't a violent rape. Let's just say that it was ambiguous. Maybe it started with consent, but maybe it escalated to non-consent at some point. The non-consent wasn't verbalized. Let's just say that at the end of it, you felt weird because of the way that you were treated, the way that afterwards you felt discarded, and, you know, it really weighed heavily on your psyche. And now you have elevated it in your mind because it has almost the same effects to a sexual. Would you, well, I don't even know what question I'm asking here, but it's like, she settled this for an undisclosed amount of money. I guess what I'm asking is, how egregious of an offense would it have to be such that no amount of money is going to cure this and you want to see the guy fry?
I mean, I don't know, because I haven't been in those shoes and I don't know how I would feel. But I think that maybe if I was verbal about my non-consent, or if I was in a state that I couldn't consent, I probably would like to see the guy fried. If it was
so, let's say that then. Let's just say that, because more likely what happened, because I've seen it happen at these parties, women are intoxicated all over the place. There's copious amounts of drugs all over the place. Whatever your pleasure, they got it. And people get taken advantage of in those scenarios all the time. Ability to consent is always thwarted in that type of environment. So let's just assume, without knowing anything about the case, that that's what it was. What amount of money, if you felt that you were, chemically altered and forced to do things that you would have never done in your right mind, what amount of money would it take to get you to go away?
I don't know, because I don't think it would be specifically about the amount of money. I think trying to put myself in the shoes of somebody that had gone through this, maybe not having to recount everything, or maybe not having to go through the process of being questioned.
I will give you $25 million.
Right now they sound good, but at the same time, I it's hard, because of all of the things, all the crimes, this is one that I'm like, oh my goodness, if somebody...
It's a heavy one.
It's a heavy one.
For sure.
And it's one of those things where you say, oh yeah, if this happens to me, I will act this way. But I think it's also one of those situations where until you are in that situation, you really don't know how you're going to react.
Well, from what I recall from my very brief foray into this world, and I did not get anywhere to the A+ level parties. I was in these fringe environment. I was an 18-year-old kid. I wasn't exposed to much, but what I was exposed to was there's very influential people all over the place.
Yes.
All of them were engaging in things that were illegal. Just full stop, illegal. And I won't name names or implicate anybody. I'm just saying that narcotics were readily available for whoever wanted to dabble or experiment. And I don't recall anybody forcibly making anybody do things, but I could see, if everybody's going that way, how somebody would feel peer pressured in doing those things. And nobody was sober during those things. We were once going to do, I remember it was on this rooftop party out in LA, in 99 or 2000. And we were literally getting ready to do a photo shoot, myself with the entire cast and crew of the Spotlight magazine. And so we go downstairs, and we're all just plastered on alcohol. Myself, alcohol. I was innocent. I didn't do anything crazy, but we were inventing alcoholic beverages, me and my friend. Well, we were having a time, right? And so we go downstairs, and the photographer that is with us was also plastered. I was like, oh yeah, we're definitely going to go do a photo shoot at 1:30 in the morning on the streets of Los Angeles, down below this rooftop party. As we were getting ready to do the photo shoot, the camera guy's camera was literally stolen. And nobody noticed. And then it was just gone. It's like, well, I guess the photo shoot is canceled. And so everybody went back upstairs, and the party ensued and all of those things.
Continued.
I'm just saying that hypothetically, somebody that is not used to that environment is 100% going to feel violated. There's violations happening all the time in all the different rooms. There's not really a safe space. It's just an amalgamation of Sodom and Gomorrah, just all over the place. And so now when people have second thoughts of it, number one, if you bring up these allegations in an environment like that, the backlash is so swift and harsh. Like if this young lady, the moment of, were to try to raise allegations, people would immediately, no, we're not doing that, all right? Look, you're having a good time. Everybody's having a good time. You're misinterpreting what happened, okay? Let's just talk about it. You're going to go away. And the allegations against Diddy Combs run deep. There's allegations out there that he paid off somebody to do 10 years in prison for him on account of the 1999 gun charges at that nightclub shooting when he was dating Jennifer Lopez.
Yes.
There's an allegation that he paid some guy like $1 million to take the rap and do 10 years in prison for him, which is not nearly enough money.
I know.
What are we talking about? That's like $100,000 a year. I mean, and so, but that's, and again, it's an allegation. It's not confirmed by anything, but it's a rumor floating around. And they're trying to bring out dirt on J-Lo because she brought the gun or gave him the gun or had possession of it somehow. Now, mind you, the statute of limitations on those kinds of crimes, because nobody was murdered on that incident, have long since passed. So this is really literally just embarrassment to try to smear her image. She's now married to, what's that guy?
Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck, again. And
well, the first time they didn't get married.
Oh, they didn't?
They got engaged and they canceled the wedding. And then...
Why do you even know that?
She got married to Mark Anthony.
I remember the Mark Anthony thing.
And then she was engaged to A-Rod.
Yeah. A-Rod.
And then Ben Affleck.
Insufferable.
I know.
I'll tell you what, this is the least fun I've ever had. The least enjoyable investigation of any of these cases that we've ever done. I so despise celebrity gossip. But yet here we are. Yep. And so, all right, so Miss Ventura decides to resolve this matter amicably. And her accusations against Combs were brought through the New York Adult Service or Survivors Act, as we had mentioned. It expired on midnight of November 23rd of 2023. So they basically opened up. You want to bring your claims, now's the time to do it, which is kind of silly. Why would you legislate that way? I mean, think about it. Okay, so you're a legislator, you're making up laws. There's a statute of limitations about bringing sexual assault claims against, you know, whatever, as an adult or after a certain time. So we're going to, for a 1-year period, allow whoever wants to bring that claim. You're going to have the same legislative issues like 5, 10, 15 years. So what are we going to do? Like every 5 years, everybody could just rush in and bring their lawsuits? It's stupid. I mean, I don't like that California, well, I don't really have an opinion about the statute of limitations, but they said, look, if we're going to allow this once, let's just allow it forever. Yeah, but you better bring your evidence. And, you know, logically, if you're like 7 years old trying to bring claims, well, I won't get too far with that. Just the act itself, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. But as a result of that act, it provided survivors a 1-year window to pursue civil litigation, regardless of when the abuse occurred, meaning incidents from decades were finally brought to light. More than 2,500 cases were filed under the ASA before its expiration at midnight on November 23rd of 23. And yeah, 2,500 cases. That's literally 8 lawsuits per day for the entire year, give or take. Survivors brought lawsuits against one of the state's most powerful men, including major players in entertainment such as Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein, Axl Rose. Axl Rose? Really? I didn't know that. And of course, Sean Combs. And by the way, Axl Rose looks and sounds really bad. Yeah. He's still doing the Guns N' Roses thing. One of my favorite bands from, you know, the 90s and stuff, but he sounds really, really bad. His voice is, it's over, man. His sing, it is just, it's over. So they brought these cases. There was another alleged victim, Rodney Jones, goes by Lil Rod. And he alleged that in his most recent lawsuit, he filed it on February 26th of 24 in New York. Producer Rodney Little Rod Jones alleged that he was subjected to unwanted advances by associates of Diddy at his direction, and that he was forced to engage in relations with the sex workers Combs had hired. Now we're starting to get into the sex trafficking stuff and why Homeland Security is in this, to the extent that this happened over international, like say it happened, like, I don't know, like in Mexico or somewhere, like internationally. I mean, I don't know, but I could see why Homeland Security is calling this a sex trafficking case. He was forced to engage in relations with sex workers. Producer who worked for Combs between September of 22 and November of 23 claimed Combs sexually harassed, drugged, and threatened him for more than a year. Which, and we don't know all of the allegations from that suit, but there is a whole list of stuff. And look, I'll tell you what, a lot of stuff is coming out on the periphery against Combs because many of these parties occurred in the houses of other people that really did not like Combs or suspicious of him, and they had cameras running in the house at all times, in all rooms, surveillance. There's a couple of issues with that. To what extent that video evidence is going to be admissible in a federal case, I'm not sure, but I'd imagine there's going to be attempts to make those videos inadmissible.
Yeah.
But people are saying, oh, I got all the dirt on Diddy. I got all this video, all of these pictures, all of this footage from people that don't like him. And I remember back in the 90s, people was talking about negatively about him when he wasn't even really that big of a thing. He was mostly coming in on the coattails of, who was that one rapper, the New York rapper that was killed after Tupac? It was Tupac and Biggie Smalls? Biggie, yeah, Notorious B.I.G.
Yeah.
Biggie Smalls. Like, yes, I mean, he did go by that, but Notorious B.I.G., that guy. Yeah, people were talking all kinds of stuff about, oh, he's trying to be in all the videos and all the stuff. That famous speech by Suge Knight, the whole East Coast versus West Coast rapper. Does that even ring a bell? Does that? Dominic, do you know what I think about that? Everybody wanted to be gangsters back in the 90s. And so everybody was like, oh, drive-by shootings and all this stuff. And it's like some 12-year-old kid from the suburbs. And it was a strange time for hip-hop back in the 90s is what I will say. So he said, Rodney Jones, Little Rod, said that he has video and audio evidence of Combs, his staff, and others engaging in serious illegal activity. The lawsuit identified rapper 50 Cent's former girlfriend and the mother of one of his children, Daphne Joy, as one of the alleged sex workers. Again, I don't know who that is. Any of you guys know who that is?
No.
The lawsuit also alleges that Combs regularly hosted sex trafficking parties, which is a weird way to kind of phrase it. I guarantee you he didn't call them a sex trafficking party.
Probably not.
So, but in this lawsuit, this is what they, somebody in the comments said they don't like when I do the finger snap thing. I'll try not to do it. I'm sorry. It's a bad habit, I know. Hosted sex trafficking parties with underage women and illegal drugs, and implies record label executives who looked the other way financially benefited from access to celebrities and dignitaries, including the British Royal Prince Harry. I'll bring him into it for sure. Okay. I don't know. It's really easy to make those allegations because if it's a party that you're invited to, there's going to be a lot of stuff that goes on and a lot of people are going to look the other way. That's not really... How many family parties have you gone to where uncle got just a little bit too drunk and it's like, you know, everybody's just pulling him into another room and like making him calm down because he's acting like an idiot and trying to fight everybody. You know, crimes are happening. But you're not going to go rat on your uncle or your cousin. It's just, hey, this is a family matter, you know, or your friends that were, I'm not trying to implicate anybody of like engaging in illegal activities. I'm just saying that things happen at parties that are oftentimes illegal where everybody looks the other way because, you know.
And when you describe like that paragraph that you just read, describing like the party scene, like what was happening. Yeah. Wasn't that like the party scene for all these famous people during that time?
Yes.
Like, this
isn't groundbreaking stuff. It's not like we don't know that these kinds of parties happen. Now, Cat Williams and all these different comedians and Kevin Hart have been alluding to these weird, crazy sexual things that were happening in the presence of Sean Diddy Combs. People are starting to drag up all of these videos of Sean Diddy Combs and redoing the context of all of it. Like I watched this one where literally he's on the couch with Mike Tyson and they're being interviewed by Arsenio Hall. And then it looked like Sean was trying to touch Mike Tyson's leg. And then Mike Tyson literally grabbed his hand and then put it on his lap and like turns, looked at him like, I'm not the one, buddy.
Oh my.
You know how you fall and you act like there ain't nobody seeing, you just keep on rocking. But it was like, I just felt, I was embarrassed for like weeks.
It truly is about the Benjamin, as we see.
Oh yes, he's glittering.
It truly is about the Benjamin.
Yeah. Well, now when we come back, we're going to talk more with Puffy.
No, it didn't go down like that. Dominic will find the video. It's like a 30-second clip of Mike Tyson basically telling Diddy, hey, buddy, I don't know what that's about.
So along these allegations, is there also like an allegation or implication that Sean is also into men?
Oh, yes.
I didn't know that.
Well, I don't want to even repeat all of the allegations because a lot of people are coming out with stories right now, and I don't know what's real and what's not. So I'm just kind of focusing on the civil complaints. But Little Rod Jones is part of his. I mean, what is he saying? He's saying that he was essentially the victim of all of this. He says he identified him, underage women, illegal drugs, implying record label execs looked the other way and financially benefited from access to celebrities and dignitaries. Now he's bringing them in Prince Harry. So
Prince Harry was crazy around that time.
Well, he's not accused of any wrongdoing.
But he was like in all the parties and he was being the like rebel.
You know, whenever he comes up on the TV, I just kind of immediately switch away. So I don't really know anything about Prince Harry.
Prince Harry, right now, he's pretty calm. He's married to an American.
Isn't he married to that one lady from Suits?
Yes.
Okay. That's how I know him.
And
then he wrote a book that what I heard was really terrible, like an autobiography.
He's no longer with the
royal family.
Royal family, yeah. But before that, when he was young, like in his teenage years, he was like a little rebel getting in trouble all the time.
Well, if you were the heir to the keys of the kingdom.
Well, the other brother wasn't, I guess, like that, William.
Well, let's just put it this way. If you were royalty and you had no consequences and, you know, access to infinite amounts of money, you know, I'd imagine you'd have some behavioral issues. So that doesn't really surprise me. But sure, I could see it. Combs' attorneys told the LA Times that the lawsuit contains reckless name-dropping about events that are pure fiction and simply did not occur. Well, maybe not. But if they got the video and there's federal raids on all of these property and they're specifically looking for those videos, all the surveillance, all of the whatever, they're looking for computer records, electronic records, digital records, any evidence that corroborates any of these claims in a criminal capacity. This has nothing to do with the civil lawsuits, but maybe they are pointing them in a specific direction, if you get what I'm saying. So Ryan Mendelsohn, 20 years old, used to live in the area where Combs' LA property was searched, told reporters he would see parties at the home and women outside until 6 a.m., which was not usual. I says, I drive by a lot and I see that a lot of girls, maybe 5 or 6 girls outside, some leaving, some not, some going in, which is not really remarkable. He says, I didn't think anything of it. I wouldn't have thought anything about it either. It's a celebrity party. Yeah. It's just kind of how it is. Mr. Mendelsohn, who added that he did not know Combs lived there until Monday's news broke. But now it's crazy. Well, none of that is crazy. And honestly, it's just kind of a stupid thing to put in this article. But yeah, I saw girls hanging out all the time. You know, good for you. I mean, my neighbors had girls. Well, not girls. I mean, they're like family people, you know, but they were having parties and stuff. If you're having parties, that's not anything of note. Joey Dickerson Neal, another alleged victim, in November 23, filed a lawsuit alleging that Combs drugged her, sexually assaulted her, and secretly recorded the assault while she was a college student in 1991. I don't know who this is. Do you know who this is?
What's the name again?
Joey Nickerson Deal. Oh, she was in a music video.
No idea.
No, I have no idea who this is. I thought it was somebody else. So she claims that Combs pushed her to go to dinner with him, and she agreed reluctantly on the 3rd of January of 1991. This is way before Diddy was even a thing.
Yeah.
Which is when she alleges she was drugged, resulting in her being in a physical state where she could not independently stand or walk, probably GHB. The suit also claims he recorded the assault and showed it to other people. She later filed police reports in New York and New Jersey, spoke to prosecutors, but was told by colleagues that they were terrified that Combs would retaliate against them and that they would lose future business and music opportunities if they made a statement in support of her. So that's, you know,
that's
believable.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I mean, especially in 91. In 91, I mean, I don't know if it was a bigger thing now or then, but, you know, if you're trying to bring a claim against anybody of stature, especially back then, before the MeToo movement and before a lot of things changed, that makes a lot of sense. There's been a lot more women that have come forward. Since November, 3 more women have come forward with lawsuits in the Southern District of New York, which is where Combs resides, alleging that they were sexually assaulted by Combs. 2 of the women said they were teenagers at the time of the alleged assault. There was an anonymous plaintiff in November An anonymous plaintiff accused Combs and singer-songwriter Aaron Hall her and a friend in 1990 or 91 after meeting at an MCA Records event in New York where the singers were very flirtatious and handsy and offered them drinks. The suit alleges that Combs and Hall invited the women to Hall's apartment for an after party where the plaintiff was offered more drinks and was coerced into having sex with Combs and was shocked and traumatized afterwards before Hall barged in the room, pinned her down, and forced Jane Doe to have sex with him, according to Rolling Stone. So I will say that stories like that in that specific industry is kind of par for the course. I hear that a lot, like in the shadows and the underbelly of everything. And you know what? People have been alluding to this kind of conduct in the Combs camp for years and years and years, and nobody's ever talked about it. How many comedians have you heard talking about Combs being weird and having these crazy parties and all this stuff? Cat Williams did a very candid interview on several different outlets where he was basically just straight up saying that, oh yeah, he was approached by Cat Williams and he turned down like this $5 million or $50 million payday because he wouldn't do specific sexual acts with Combs. And I'll let you guys listen to that podcast or his interview, but he was saying stuff like that. Okay. And so this has been kind of floating under the undercurrent for a really long time, and nothing's ever come about of it. Now we have a federal investigation and potential charges and all this stuff. We have these civil lawsuits that are now coming to light, and it wouldn't surprise me if there's probably a dozen or so more by the time all of this is done. Well, I think they limited the statute to November of last year. Okay. But it wouldn't surprise me if others lawsuits become unearthed in the coming months. So after she spoke to her friend, the plaintiff allegedly found out she had also been forced to have sex with Combs and Hall in another room. And a few days later, Combs allegedly visited the plaintiff and her friend at a home where they were staying, where he became irate and began assaulting and choking Jane Doe to the point that she passed out. So that's not a sexual, that's just a flat out assault, attempted murder, there's a lot more to that than meets the eye. So in December, Combs was hit with another lawsuit which claimed he had drugged and gang a 17-year-old girl in 2003. She's enlisted as Jane Doe for anonymity purposes. Yeah, so the plaintiff, identified as Jane Doe, accused Combs of supplying her with drugs and alcohol at his New York studio and then her along with two other associates. The suit accused Combs of a sex trafficking scheme in which Jane Doe was flown by private jet from her home in Michigan to New York. So here is Sean Combs' response to all of the allegations. What do you think he's going to say? Oh, I definitely did all of that. Of course, I'm guilty, and I apologize to all these young ladies. I was behaving badly, and I'm working on myself. I'd like to correct my behavior in the future. Matter of fact, I'm starting a foundation for underprivileged women and women that have been the victims of course, he's not going to say that.
No, it's typical script. I didn't do anything. These people offered my money.
Yeah. Well, this is what he said. Strongly denied all the allegations against him and vowed to fight for my name and family. Fight for my name, my family, and for the truth. In a statement in December following the lawsuit brought by Jane Doe, he called the claims sickening and said his accusers were looking for a quick payday. And let me be absolutely clear, I did not do any of the awful things being alleged. He said in a statement, I will fight for my name, my family, and for the truth. Combs' lawyer, Sean Hawley, branded the events described in the lawsuit as pure fiction. We have overwhelming, indisputable proof that his claims are complete lies. We will address these outlandish allegations in court and take all appropriate action against those who make them. I think that hit all of my bullet points for the most obnoxious statements by stupid-ass defense attorneys. if he's making those kinds of claims, he better come with the receipts then. Oh, you got indisputable evidence, indisputable proof that everybody's telling lies. Well, you better come, because they're saying they got indisputable video and proof themselves. And there's a lot of people that are coming after him with these allegations. And so if you're going to say stuff like that, look, there is floating theories out there in the legal world where you're litigating these when you're litigating these high-profile cases where we don't want to taint the jury pool, we don't want to litigate this in public, or you're putting out certain statements to color the jury and all of this stuff. But you have to, when you're defending this case, I feel like you have to defend it as if everybody is a potential juror. And if you're going to say stuff like that, it's the equivalent of like when you're doing imagine when you're doing a jury trial, and in your opening statement to say, I have indisputable proof that all of this is BS and everybody's lying and he's lying and she's lying and I'm going to prove it. And when this is all done, you're going to exonerate my client 100%. You promise the jury that, and then in your case in chief, fail to deliver. Well, now they know that you're a liar. And it doesn't matter how close it was, you're going to lose in a landslide because they know that you're a liar, because credibility is everything. So, in my opinion, the way to address these allegations would have been to simply say that, listen, I'm not going to litigate these issues in court, and we will file the appropriate defenses and motions and make the appropriate arguments on the day of court or something like that. Yeah, but we're not going to make any statements right now. But my client's pled not guilty, and we'll just leave it at that. And that's it, because you're not trying to make headlines, but the sensationalist statement about we are definitely going to prove. Yeah, I mean, come on, man. I guess the other way of looking at that is if he's guilty of all of this stuff, he's going to go to jail for life.
Oh, yeah.
If he's guilty of sex trafficking and all of these other charges taken together, what happened to R. Kelly? He's sitting in a jail cell. He's never going to get out. And so this might be his last salvo. And so he's pulling out all the stops. I just, if I would not have done it that way is all I'm trying to say. But good for him. Following the settlement with Ventura, Ben Brafman, another attorney for Combs, told The Independent, just so we're clear, a decision to settle a lawsuit, especially in 2023, is in no way an admission of wrongdoing. Mr. Combs' decision to settle the lawsuit does not in any way undermine his flat-out denial of the claims. He is happy they got to a mutual settlement and wishes Miss Ventura the best. I mean, I wouldn't have even said that much, but it's better than what the other guy said, Sean Hawley. So those are the civil claims. So what came about as a result of all of that? Well, all of those allegations, all of those civil lawsuits launched a federal investigation, and Diddy's houses, multiple, were raided by federal authorities about a week ago. Diddy was not arrested or charged, but they are certainly building a case. There is aerial footage of Diddy's children being placed in handcuffs, and a lot of people have made a big deal about that. And reading from News Nation, from an article where they're addressing this, it came out yesterday, I believe. It's today, April. Well, it just came out this morning. So 1 week after two homes belonging to the hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs were raided by federal investigators, law enforcement has released little details to a potential charge the music producer could be facing. Department of Homeland Security agents conducted the raids last week at Combs' multi-million-dollar mansion in Los Angeles and his Miami waterfront home. The raids came as the producer faces a mounting list of civil lawsuits that allege abuse and sexual assault by multiple victims spanning over 30 years. And they're specifically talking about stuff in 91. And of course, Combs has denied everything. So while federal authorities have given sparse public comment as to what prompted the raids, News Nation affiliate WPIX reported that it was part of an ongoing sex trafficking investigation. Authorities are also reportedly widening their probe to include potential witness intimidation, sexual assault, and firearms violations, according to a New York Post report. They say that Sean Diddy knew that this was coming. In a Saturday interview on News Nation Prime, Dana Kennedy of the New York Post said her Homeland Security sources indicate the investigation into Combs is the tip of the iceberg, and that nothing is off the table. So, which leads me to Rico. If they Rico this guy, it's going to increase the scope of their investigation to far-reaching, basically the ends of the earth. Right now, they're limited jurisdictionally as far as what they can investigate. But if they Rico this guy, an ongoing criminal enterprise that was engaged in criminal activity for a number of years, that basically creates this maximally wide net for all of the evidence that their investigation could potentially uncover. And so that's a big thing that's going on. So at the raids, investigators, they seized firearms and phones belonging to Combs. And although it is unclear how many devices were confiscated, they certainly found stuff. And so they're looking for the video footage. They're looking for digital records. They're looking for, you know, photographs, anything that might be stored on all of this stuff. Okay. And if they have that, if it was the subject of this federal search warrant, well, they're going to have indisputable, undeniable evidence that he's guilty of this stuff, assuming that that's what's found. So I guess my biggest concern for Combs is, to what extent has he so angered the people in that industry that they were literally setting him up to be blackmailed? If he's having parties in other people's houses in an environment that he can't control, and they set up surveillance footage that they control, and he's doing all of this stuff. I mean, number one, he's an idiot. But number two, they're going to have the receipts. And I imagine his defense attorney is going to try to get rid of that with motions in limine to exclude based on privacy laws or whatever. And they're going to have to figure all of that out. But it sounds like it's going to be coming in. And the audacity, the level of, I mean, imagine, like, you're so, your ego is so large that you feel like you could do all of these things without getting away with it. And he has been a person of great stature in the hip hop community for many decades now, to the point where he could literally make or break people's careers, alter the course of their career, control how much money they make or don't make. He had like a very famous show on MTV, I think, where it was like Making the Band. Some of the people that were on that show literally said, I would not have sex with Combs, and so therefore he dropped me from the label. You know, they would make those kinds of claims. And how many people are willing to go through that? From what I remember, and it really hasn't changed much, I can't imagine, but you have mostly young people at these places. Every single, Ileana, when I tell you that every single person on this, I worked on this, I was telling Dominic the other day, I worked on this one music video called Rough Ends, No More Shopping Sprees.
No idea.
It was this one. Do you know what this one is? So I was literally on the set of this video, in this car that's right now in this music video. My whole job was to make sure that that car stayed clean and that nobody messed with it, and that was all I did. They paid me $200, but I was on the set of this place, and I kid you not, when I was there, every single person, the dancers, the people like me, these guys, they thought they were going to be like the next Jodeci. I think they were pretty much one-hit wonders. All had designs on being rich and famous and were infatuated. They were lustful for this lifestyle of what was being perpetrated, at least in the 90s. This video was so 90s. But it's like that image, the glitz and the glam, Hollywood, famous, whatever, parties, celebrity, all of it. All of them were willing to do whatever it took to get a taste of that world. All of them. And most of the women, who were mostly the biggest victims in all of this, of course some of the men as well, were asked to do things that they wouldn't normally do. And most of them were willing to do it because of the implications that it would mean for their lives. And they knew that they were willing to do those things. And so it emboldened them to create these Harvey Weinsteins. You think Harvey Weinstein was like the end? he was the tip of the iceberg. And he's not even the worst of them by any stretch. All of these frickin' people, well, I'm not mentioning any names, but a lot, I'll just say this, a lot of them, that attitude, that behavior, them being emboldened by knowing they could tell these young girls to do specific things and there would be no objections because they held the keys to fame. Oh, well, they would do it. And all it took was, and if you didn't, if you rejected it, oh, you were so gone. You were gone. Yeah. Immediately, shipped out. You'll never work in this industry again. You will never be on set again. You'll never have these friends. Nobody's going to talk to you. You're a pariah forever. And so manipulation, of course, all of these things, they were victimizing these young girls and nobody was speaking out about it because, again, this is 1999 or 2000 when this video came out. The MeToo movement was not even a glimmer in anybody's eye at that point. All of this was acceptable behavior, and it wasn't until these a few brave people decided to bring it to the forefront of the societal discourse did we even address it to the point that we have now.
And so, still, I think it happens.
But here's the thing. If they're opening up the investigation to cover things that happened 30 years ago, and of course it still does happen now, just it's a little bit different. But the way that it happened back then,
oh no, it's
you don't have to look very far to find illegal stuff. If they want to find illegal stuff and charge them with stuff, oh, they will. But they're building a case. It's significant that he hasn't been charged with anything because it means specifically that they are building a case that they're going to present in an attempt to put him away for life. They're not. This is not a slap on the hand thing. I feel like the extent to which these federal raids occurred, the fact that the Department of Homeland Security is involved, that they're trying to basically Rico this case, that they're trying to expand the scope of their investigation, that they haven't specifically named any charges, tells me that they're going for a home run. And they want to put this, they want to R. Kelly Sean Diddy Combs. That's what they want to do. So whether or not he gets charged with anything, I feel like it's just a matter of time before something happens. And just to finish up with this article, so investigators during their raid seized firearms and also produced phones belonging to Combs. It's unclear how many were confiscated. Along with a heavy presence of officers wearing protective gear and weapons, command trucks were used and parked outside both properties during the raids. Combs' sons, Justin and Christian King, were handcuffed during the raid at their father's LA home. Their mother, Misa Hilton, said that she has retained high-profile attorney Jeffrey Lichtman to look into excessive use of force, which they're not going to get anywhere with that. Used on Justin and Christian during the raid because it was a federal raid. They didn't know what they were walking into. They didn't know. I mean, they clearly seized firearms. They were tipped off that there was firearms. They were basically securing the perimeter and make sure everybody's safe. They're not going to get anywhere with that. The force used against my sons, Justin and Christian, is deplorable. If these were the sons of a non-black celebrity, they would not have been handled with the same aggression. She wrote, the attempt to humiliate and terrorize these innocent young black men is despicable. Oh, they're just pulling out all the stops, aren't they? Look, if this was Johnny Cash's home, if they had a federal warrant to raid and look for illegal firearms and evidence of sexual, or SA, as Dominic wants me to say, they would have done the same thing. No doubt about that, but I don't want to speak too much to that. There is legitimate cases of civil rights violations that I run into every single day, and they are given less and less weight because of people saying stupid things like this without any merit behind them. But never mind all of that. It's just so disgusting, in my opinion. I have no dog in this case. I don't care if Diddy Combs is convicted or if he's actually innocent or guilty. He's not my friend. I don't know him. If he did these things, I think he should pay. But the way that his defense team is handling it, the way that his family is handling it, making themselves out to be the victim, implicating racism in the name of the federal raids because of excessive force that was pretty much, had nothing to do, in my opinion. It's pretty much just standard fare for how they conduct federal raids. But for them to pull that card under all of this is just, I don't know, it's very distasteful. Combs' attorney, Aaron Dyer, calls the raid a witch hunt in a statement released a day later. Yesterday, there was a gross overuse of military-level force as search warrants were executed at Mr. Combs' residences. There is no excuse for the excessive show of force and hostility exhibited by authorities or the way his children and employees were treated. And I'll tell you what, how many times have you seen videos of law enforcement officials putting themselves in life-endangering situations because they're doing a traffic stop, because they're entering in an environment where they can't control? There might be weapons that are not in there, and then they're trying to be... Just the other day, like last week, there was an officer, I saw it came on my TikTok feed, that was going to investigate a claim of a loiterer, of like an abandoned building. And then he approached the guy, just trying to be cool with them, didn't have his gun drawn or anything like that. He approached him. He says, "Hey, are you the person that made the call?" And the guy literally took out a knife and got the drop on him. He didn't have time. He was literally running from this guy, and he caught up with him, and he got stabbed to death.
What?
Because he gave this guy the benefit of the doubt. And it happens all the time. These officers are putting themselves in life-endangering situations all the time. If they have to use a little bit of force to secure everybody and make sure everybody is safe, and they're not literally using excessive force, such as placing their knee on the back of somebody's neck to the point where they asphyxiate themselves or their ribs, or as many of these other cases that we've seen, then by all means, do what you got to do to make sure everybody is safe, because it's not just for their protection. It's for everybody's protection. But whatever, they pulled that card because I guess they got to say something, right? While it's still unclear exactly where Combs was during the searches, images from TMZ appear to show Combs walking around and coming face-to-face with federal authorities at the Miami, Opa, LACA executive airports. So, what accusations is Diddy facing, and could they be part of the raids? They talk about the 5 civil suits that we just talked about. They talk about Cassandra Ventura. They talk about all of the same stuff that we've already addressed. I can't talk. That we've already addressed. He hasn't been arrested yet, but as soon as they build enough of a case, I expect that's coming soon. But here's the thing. If they arrest him now, and maybe they got charges for, they have enough for some of the charges, but not for some of the bigger ones. My guess is there's not really a reason to try to charge him now. Before we make the arrest, let's build a case so that we have enough so that he can't bail out of jail, or that we make it somehow impossible to do that. Maybe that's what they're trying to do. What could the raid on Diddy's home mean? Well, authorities have been tight-lipped on why, but former NYPD detective Derek Parker told News Nation that he knew an investigation involving Combs was in the works. The raid that you saw at the house was only the beginning. The search warrant that they got from a magistrate and federal court to go to his property was already authorized. The government is gathering the cooperations that they have so far, and they're giving them information, explicit information about P. Diddy and some of the things that he's done. So they're taking the information and they're utilizing it in a big case against him. So what does it all mean? It means that Diddy is in a lot of trouble. And how much time is he facing? Well, potentially life in prison. And I don't know what the extent of the charges are going to be. But I really feel like they are keeping their eyes on him. There's been some suggestion that he tried to flee to the Caribbean while this investigation is going on, but I don't think he's going to.
Where to the Caribbean? I mean.
Yeah, I mean, TMZ says that they tracked his personal jet. The outlet initially reported the aircraft was on the ground in Antigua, and it's unknown if Combs was on the airplane. Antigua, as we know, is an extradition country, so probably not the best place to flee if Diddy was indeed on that plane. If that's where he is, former federal prosecutor Niama Rahamni said during an interview on Banfield, Combs was reportedly spotted Thursday night at Topgolf in Miami with his 17-year-old daughters. One day later, fitness coach Wes Watson posted a picture of himself and Combs at the Pura Vida restaurant in Miami. I came to grab a shot of espresso when I ran into Diddy, Watson said. On Easter Sunday, Combs posted a picture of his daughter writing Happy Easter from Baby Love as the caption. Combs' private plane, a Black Love Air USA LLC-owned Gulfstream G550, has vanished from public tracking site Flight Aware. Ollie Coleman, deputy editor for Page 6, told Banfield, people can remove their planes from tracking sites. They're keeping his whereabouts pretty close to the chest. As much as you can track those things, you can also go to some trouble and black yourself out on them. On this occasion, his plane disappeared, gone private, as it were. And that's it. So, what do you think of all of that?
I don't know. I don't care much for Diddy, so it's like, if he did it, then...
Well, I mean,
jail. Like,
okay, let's just say, hey, super lawyer Ileana Clone Rosa, I need your help. So the feds just raided my house. What should I do? When would you tell them? You should probably go to jail. I don't know. That's your like typical answer. What did you do? You know? Well, if he were to come to me, I would not have made the statements that his attorneys have already made. I would not make any statements whatsoever. I would simply go about the business of demanding full-blown batteries of discovery from all of the alleged victims. I want to see what they have on my client. I wouldn't make any promises to them and say, look, buddy, I'm going to find out what they have, and I'm not going to say anything about this case until I know what's out there. Now, when I find out what's out there, then once I'm emboldened with the strength or lack of strength of their case, maybe then I'll start making statements, because it's just kind of my style that, okay, yes. When I am defending a client in a civil lawsuit, before I say anything or start making any promises, I just litigate the case. Now, most of my cases, obviously, I'm not giving press conferences
of course.
But like, I don't start making bold proclamations to opposing counsel because I don't know what's out there. I just assume the worst and hope for the best, and I see what's what once all of the investigation is done. But once I've done that, for example, there is a case right now that I'm actively litigating involving false allegations of sexual misconduct against a child alleged to have been performed by father. So I took those claims. All right, well, bring me what you have. I want to see all of the evidence. I think I've told you about this case. And then I looked at what he had, and I'm like, seriously? This is what prompted you coming all the way down to my office and saying, oh, this is so important. I need to bring an ex-partner. I can't even email this to you because it might be distribution of child. Oh, that sounds pretty serious. Well, let me see what you got. And then I get it, and then it's just like a big nothing. Like, seriously. Oh, and then I come to find out that they've been in possession of those materials for like a year. And then come to find out that they didn't file it until after they had lost on an ex-parte application brought about by father for some other thing that happened. All this craziness. And so once I start finding out all of those things and figuring out that my case is stronger and stronger, their case is quickly dwindling, then I'll usually pull counsel aside and say, look, you can continue to bring these claims if you want to, but if you do, there's going to be consequences. And if you want to dismiss it right now because bad things could happen to your client, I'm open to doing that. But if you want to go forward, I'm going to be forced to doing X, Y, and Z. And, well, sometimes it happens. What I found with attorneys, especially, well, I don't want to say anything about that. Just know, when you're dealing with counsel that is smarter than you on the case, it's best not to let your ego get involved and try to compete with them because you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes it's best to just litigate and educate yourself on the laws and, maybe seek advice from other attorneys. I don't know. But I'll tell you what I would not have done. I would never accidentally taint the jury pool the way that I believe this Holland attorney has potentially tainted the jury pool. He just made a very bold statement. We have indisputable, irrefutable evidence that these people are liars. So if you have that, you better have that. But it also makes me think that, okay, what kind of evidence would they have? Because clearly they're going to have video evidence against him. So what would possibly exonerate my client from any of this, Maybe it's potentially video of them outright threatening to blackmail Diddy Combs. maybe opening with the possibility to like AI deepfakes. That's now a thing.
I know.
That's where litigation's headed in 24.
It's crazy.
I can't even imagine, but I will not make such a bold statement when I know there's probably a lot worse out there for my client. It's just idiotic. It's a litigation suicide. But hey, I'm not Diddy's attorney. And you know what? I'm not even saying I'm a better attorney than him. He's probably much better than me. He's probably got way more experience doing these high-profile cases than I do. I'm just saying I would do it differently. And so the time to be bold is not at the beginning when you haven't seen everything. Mm-hmm. So, you know who else made that mistake? Amber Heard's attorneys.
Yeah.
And they look like, that was the one that I was asking Dominic to make objections when I did my mock trial of Nicole Kessinger. And then I said, hey, Dominic, you could object to me at any time. Mm-hmm. And then he posted this clip of this guy objecting to his own question.
Oh, yes.
So what does she say? Objection, hearsay. You asked the question, counselor. Are you objecting to yourself? Yes, I am. I don't even know where I was going with that. All I'm saying is I'm really put off by the way that Diddy's camp is handling all of these things. It's almost like Trump's attorneys. They got out there and did the exact same thing. Multiple of his attorneys have done this. So first Trump's attorneys try to say about the voting machines things, and I don't even want to go back and revisit it. But they were making all of these wild claims about all the evidence you would find about voter fraud. And I want to say they had something like 90 different federal hearings, and they all got kicked out because of lack of evidence. And I think the main lead attorney got disbarred.
Oh, yeah?
Giuliani definitely got disbarred, but I think that one, the one female attorney that went on CNN, and I don't remember her name. She had like a puppy that she did an interview with, but I want to say got disbarred, but don't quote me on that. And then Trump got his ass kicked in court. The same thing with a lot of the current investigation about them, and I don't want to start talking about politics, but the way that his attorneys handled the case by making these bold allegations and then they get their ass kicked in court, it's not a good look.
It's just style, I guess.
It's not a good one. Like, who taught them that? When has that ever worked?
I know. But I can see how some clients will like that. And will expect that.
Well, I guarantee you, yes. And there are times, and you and I know this, there are times when you just say stuff in court because your client wants you to. I just did that the other day.
Me too.
With my client. And I told her that, look, what you're asking for, I understand why you're asking for it, but what is the reason? And then she gave me the reason. And I just said, you know, in all honesty, that's not going to work. The judge is going to tell you no. I will make the argument for you. And I'll even let you present the argument if you wanted to. And it was something akin to, I want to have every Easter Sunday because it's special to me. Like, okay, well, why is it special to you? And then the reason was something like, well, it's our old wedding anniversary and I want to make it a special day so that my child doesn't think that she's the reason for us getting a divorce or something like that. Which is a sweet thing to say. It's well-intentioned, but it's not a child-centric reason.
Yes,
and you know that if you present that in court, you know what the judge is going to say. And I knew what this judge was going to do. And it's not, you know, I try to present it in court. I try to present it. And then the judge is kind of looking at me sideways, as I know that she would. And then I turn to my client and is like, did you want to present it? Do you have anything to add? And I let her say it. And then the judge just kind of smiled at her and just understood, but it's not a legal reason why she could make. But she understood. But I prepped my client and said, look, I'll ask for that, but you're going to lose. It's not going to work out. It's just not.
Sometimes it's just, because it happens all the time to me, where even if you explain to the client, like, this is not going to work, they just want it said so that the judge knows. Yeah, and somehow, I guess it makes them feel better.
Oh, they just want to tell their story. Yeah, I mean, the biggest job that we have as attorneys is to make sure that our clients' stories get told. And sometimes that's all it is. They just want their story on full display in a judicial setting so that everybody can know the context behind it. Context is important to people. It's not important to judges.
I know.
But it's important to them. And I get it. I really do. And that's why, you know, the lines are so greatly blurred between a lawyer and a psychologist. They want us to understand why they decided to leave their marriage. They want us to understand why they think their husband or their ex-wife is a piece of shit. They want us to understand that they are such a good parent and that their ex is being completely unreasonable and how it's affected them. And so
what they went through the entire relationship.
Yeah.
And why they are how they are right now.
Yes.
And they're asking what they're asking for.
They just want a vent. They just want a friend. And I understand it. I understand. And you have to toe that line, especially in family law, because 99% of it is just so irrelevant.
Yes.
And not going to be helpful and serve to distract and maybe piss off or annoy the judge. And so I try to give my clients that space in that room. But the reason we even started talking about this is because sometimes lawyers have to put on a show for their clients. This was probably a directive from Combs saying, I want you to say this and that. And they give him a big retainer, like $1 million. All right, I'm going to say it. He might have even said, I'll say it, but it's not going to do anything.
It's not going to change it.
I'll say, all right, fine. My client is outraged at these allegations, and we have indisputable proof that this is all bullshit. Totally. So, but hey, I might have just, if I had to do it, maybe would have just said it a little bit less.
Different, yeah.
Made it a little more non-committal, you know? So, that's all I really have to say about Mr. Combs for this case. Eliana?
Yes.
I think it's about that time. For all of you that tuned in specifically to hear about the Diddy Combs case, well, at this point, it is now your time to jump off of this mothership. But for all the rest of you that are interested, it is time for us to give our thoughts and opinion and candid advice, not legal advice, but candid advice to those unsuspecting people or suspecting people looking for help in their ongoing dissolution cases. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for Family Law After Dark, where myself and Ileana give our attorney perspective on various family law scenarios. It's very important that you understand that this cannot and should not be perceived as legal advice, because the chances are if we were talking to you individually in either one of our offices, one small thing that you would tell us with respect to the hypotheticals that we are covering would change the entire analysis for you. And so, by all means, for your individual situations, please go see an attorney. For right now, we are speaking about these hypotheticals into the general context of the entire universe. But it's fun to talk about, and let's get into our first.
For entertainment.
Yeah, for entertainment only. I don't know how many of these we're going to get to, but let's start with this one. So he has two questions. I believe couples tend to leave retirement alone. Is this true, or does anyone have experience with that? Otherwise, yes, I do. The second question feels a bit shadier and could cause a fight, but I still want to ask. We have a joint account and both of our separate accounts for our own personal expenses. When we bought our vehicles, we put them under our names only. I only have $3,500 left on payments. My wife says around $20K. Would it be smart to pay off the loan with my money? All right. So he's asking about money stuff. This is his scenario. My wife and I have decided to cut ties and get a divorce. On the gradual slide down, we saw a therapist and had general kitchen table talks about custody, assets, and finances. We finally decided to commit a week ago and began gathering paperwork and details to file again. In our first few conversations, months back, we had chosen to prepare and go uncontested. She randomly decided to contact a lawyer to protect herself last week, which I assume was advice she received from friends and family. I get the idea, but feel it's only going to hurt discussions, as I still don't want to involve lawyers who will likely push for above our agreed 50-50 split. All right, I will. Should we cure that myth? Okay, when people come to you and they say they want to they want to settle everything right down the middle. They don't care about this or that. Do you say, oh no, we are going to push for every single penny that you could possibly get in alimony, and I'm going after his retirement, and I'm going to go get discovery because I want to make sure he's not hiding money and dug up in Colombia somewhere? Is that the conversation that you have? Definitely
no.
Let me tell you specifically one conversation I had with a prospective client that basically told me the same thing. My wife and I kind of have like the framework of something we want to work up. We just want help like drafting it. We don't want to fight about anything. And I'm like, great. Well, could I bring her into the office and could we talk about it again? Absolutely. But I have to tell you that I can't represent both of you at the same time. I got to pick one. But I'd be happy to discuss. And what I would recommend for your wife to do, if I'm going to be representing you, is that she go contact her own attorney. I have to let her know about her rights. Matter of fact, there's certain things where I'm required to make sure there's a writing saying that I acknowledge that I have these specific rights and I'm giving them up by agreeing to do this. Because if you don't, then you could be accused of, well, undue influence and various other things. So, but we had that discussion. One of the things I said to him was like, what's the worst that could happen? That she finds out that you guys have had a 20-year marriage and nobody told her before that she's entitled to lifetime alimony because of the length of the marriage, basically until she passes away or you marry or some other significant circumstance. And she wants to cash in on all of that. And then some other attorney convinces her that, oh, by the way, you're also entitled to half of this and half of that, and you don't have to do this, and this is what you stand to lose or win, whatever. Fine. Yeah, that's the worst. Sometimes somebody talks to a lawyer and says they tell her that she has the following rights, and these are them. And then, you know, they can make the decision to say, no, I just want to get this done because I'm getting married to somebody else in like a year and I want to make sure this is finalized, whatever. That'll happen. But here's a scenario. Most people, when they go into these situations for an amicable divorce, have already got over the shock and horror of having the realization that your marriage is going to be falling apart. 95% of the people that file for a divorce are just getting over the emotions of making the transition to being fully committed and devoted to one person, to have them straight up reject that lifestyle and want to go their own separate ways. There's a lot of pain and agony in that decision, in that hurt, in those emotions, in that sadness, and that depression is born about this idea that we're going to get even in the divorce. And then you have these messy litigations. But then what happens is it's really hard and a pain in the ass to do it that way, and you end up settling the case anyway. Exactly. Sometimes after, 6 to 7 or 8 months, 14 months, a couple of years of going back and forth. But if you guys have already gone through the hard part together and you are mature enough and ready enough and stable enough to come and sit in my office together as I go over and address, look, yeah, we're going to give up alimony, but here's what you're entitled to. You're entitled to lifetime alimony because it's a long-term marriage in the state of California. But, if this is what you want to do, I will draw it up exactly how you guys want it drawn up. I just got to make sure in the document there are provisions so that it can't be challenged in the future. That way it's a clean split. We don't got to worry about anything. Fine. So yeah, you could do that. But it takes a skilled attorney to present it in such a way that it doesn't start War of the Roses. Yes. Have you guys ever saw that movie, War of the Roses?
No.
It's about divorce. You should watch it. 1987, Michael Douglas and I forget the other lady's name, Kathleen Turner or something.
Okay.
I forget. It's a really old movie, but it's about divorce. And there's the little guy, Danny DeVito was in it. I want to say he was like the divorce attorney. I go watch it, whatever.
War of Roses?
The War of Roses. Yeah, okay. I won't spoil it for you, even though it's a 30-year-old plus movie. But, it's entertaining. So I am sure I'm going to get a lot of get your own lawyer for my own protection now, but would like to try and stick it out if at all possible. A little background from the point of my question. So I made a little over $100,000 and my wife is in the mid 70,000s. We have 3 children, 7, 5, 3. Yikes. We agree on a 2-2-3 and custody is not a problem. Good for you. That's half the battle. That said, my kids are much more attached to me. Oh, here we go. My kids are much more attached to me as I do not subscribe to authoritative. See, this is where you start. This is where we get started.
The red flags are.
Oh, I do not subscribe to authoritative parenting like my wife. I put them to bed every night and get them ready in the mornings. I am simply more involved in their emotional well-being. This is one of the guys that wants a medal. I'm such a good dad, and I'm so progressive in my parenting style, and I just don't think the children are going to be as well adjusted having to deal with her and her authoritative, outdated style, raising a bunch of never mind. When she all right. When she began asking for financial docs for her lawyer, though, it caught me off guard, so I agreed if she provided the same to me. Originally, we discussed leaving each other's retirement alone, but the more I think about it, what did I just say?
There we go.
So originally, we discussed leaving each other's retirement alone, but the more I think about it, the more I'm feeling I need to fight for my own interests. I bought my first home years ago by pulling from my 401k and using funds from my grandfather's passing.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I proposed to her months later so that property became ours. I worked daily on that starter home and sold for $70,000 profit to fund our current home. I worked daily on that starter home and sold it for profit for $70,000. Okay. I've done the same with our current home, and we stand to make a hefty profit. I believe it is in my best interest to involve the retirement now, as hers is substantially higher, as she never had to dip into it. Oh, boy. Okay. For starters, let's go through this one by one. Yeah. The house that he bought. Mm-hmm. There was a down payment from an inheritance. That's his separate property, no matter how you slice it. Use it as a down payment. He would be entitled to a dollar for dollar reimbursement. This is a California case. Yeah. Problem with that is he used the proceeds from that first house to purchase the community residence. Those funds have now been commingled and have thus far been recharacterized as community property. He has no separate property interest in this house anymore. By that analysis, if all of that is true. As far as her having a heftier 401k, yeah, sure, maybe, but you also are going to be paying her alimony to some degree. 100 versus 70k. It's not going to be a substantial amount of alimony, but it's going to be something. And I guarantee you, if you start going after her 401k, then she's going to go after his alimony. Yeah. And then she wants half of your retirement, and then she's going to want half of your share. Well, if you guys are going to split that down the middle. And you know what? All that good will that you brought up and coming to terms on this 223 schedule, well, now all of a sudden she wants to be sole legal, physical parents of the children because she thinks that your non-disciplinary style is not in their best interest. They're going to grow up to be juvenile delinquents because of a lack of discipline.
That's the type of case where everything, they come with an agreement in the beginning, and all of a sudden you get this email that says, well, I was thinking about it, and I think the children will be better off with me, so I want to just have as much custody as I can. And it's like, oh.
Yeah. Listen, here's the thing. First of all, here's why divorce is such a bad contract, because it ties you guys together in ways that you have to go through this process now to split up. And now we're talking about dividing retirement accounts and 223 arrangements. And, I want my fair share. I spent my separate property on the house and we use it to buy this thing. We're going to stand to make a lot, and I want what I'm entitled to. Okay, you start talking that way, you're going to find yourself in 18 months of litigation, an expensive family law trial that sounds like it's probably at least a 3 to 5 day trial. That's probably not going to be heard consecutively. So you're talking about 3 to 5 days of trial translates to an additional year of litigation, probably. So you're going to be going through this divorce for 2 to 3, maybe 4 years, depending on the courtroom's availability, depending on discovery. Do you know how much it costs to litigate for 3 to 4 years? He just said that he made a hefty amount of money in that property. Sold for $70,000 profit. Ha! Your current home. Yay. Guess what the lawyer bills are going to be?
I know.
We're talking at least on the low end, 6 figures. Or you guys can probably find an attorney to take a flat fee of $2,500 or maybe less to drop an ironclad judgment where you get to walk away and she gets to walk away and you guys have final orders of custody and visitation that allows you to co-parent peacefully and nobody has these bad feelings of having gone through 24 to 36 to 48 months of litigation, and you get to keep all the money that you made in your properties. Otherwise, you're just going to give it to the attorneys. So look, you're opening up a can of worms there, buddy. So look, you by all means 100% fight for whatever you think that you're entitled to. Just know that unless you're doing it on your own, whatever you stood to make, it sounds like, is going straight into your attorney's pockets. I would highly advise you. Now look, if you want to do an uncontested divorce and you guys want to do that on your own, do it. I would caution that people that do it that way, maybe half the time, end up with judgments that are not enforceable.
Yes.
So it's worth $2,500 to $5,000 to have it written up by an attorney in a way that protects against post-judgment litigation. If you want a divorce and you want a real split, then do it in a way where it's more like a breakup. You don't have to talk to each other. I mean, you guys got to co-parent together, fine. But you don't want to be having to deal with this for the next 20 years of your life. So let's just, look, cut your losses. And you could get all of the medals you want about being a good dad to whoever the next prospective missus you're going to have. And you could go and make more money with your newly found separate property income and start doing your own thing. She'll be on her own. You'll be on your own. Start building up your own retirement and just move on. But if you really want to do it, it's going to be a $15,000 retainer. Well, let's go on the low end. $7,500 retainer, which will cover the bare bones basic minimum, not a trial.
Not a trial, yeah.
And then what I often say is, look, this is probably going to get you start to finish unless we have to do some crazy stuff with discovery and trial, in which case you're looking at probably $20,000 to $30,000 to $50,000. But for 2 to 3 years of litigation, you're probably well over 6 figures in attorney fees by the time it's all said and done. And so whatever you thought you made on that house, well, you didn't make nothing. And then you're going to end up leaving with what you had. All of that. Much better to save yourself the aggravation. Keep your money and just move on, man. It's not worth it is not worth it.
It is not, no.
But hey, we will be here if you think it is. For some people, it's just about the principle, right?
Exactly. Yes. Because I do it all the time. I present to my clients, you want to fight this issue, this is how much you're going to get back.
Yeah.
But this is how much it's going to cost you to litigate that. 99% of the time, it doesn't make sense.
Hey, and by the way, you're not always going to get an attorney that are like you and me, right?
Yes, that's true.
I talk myself out of so many clients.
Yeah.
I convince them that they don't need me. Like, look, do you really want to give me $7,500 to do this? Or do you think you might be able to do this on your own and keep your money, go take a trip to Tahiti or something, and, you know, live happily ever after? Some attorneys will promise you the moon and the stars, and it'll sound very much like a sales pitch, and they won't tell you about the cost. So they'll probably say something, I will charge you a $3,500 retainer, and I will fight for you, and I'll do all of this. Next thing you know, like a month later, hey, you need to replenish the retainer, and you're going to have that same conversation like 12 times after the fact, and then what you thought was a $3,500 retainer is now turned into $150,000 in legal fees.
And what I find a lot through the potential clients and the clients is that a lot of the times they talk to an attorney and they say what they want or what their hopes are, and they're not reasonable. Like their hopes and dreams, whatever, they're not reasonable, but they don't get corrected. Like the attorney doesn't tell them, yeah, that's not possible. They just go ahead and quote them and kind of go with the whole like sales pitch and make them believe that that's possible. And then they go ahead and hire. And then after they hire, oh yeah, that's not possible.
Exactly. Well, I didn't know that you were going to be, you know, I thought you had more evidence. It's your fault.
Yeah.
You were the one that deceived me.
So.
I've seen bad attorneys like that. I've seen attorneys lose custody for their client with the children because of making false allegations of sexual misconduct, child abuse, those kinds of things. Inexperienced family law attorneys don't think that's a real thing. Oh, this is a very real thing.
Now that you mentioned that, And you mentioned earlier about the judgments. Judgments are not an easy thing.
No.
You have to craft it very carefully.
Yeah.
Word it very carefully.
Yeah.
And I even seen judgments made by attorneys, but they're not family law attorneys.
Right.
That have mistakes. So it's not just about getting an attorney. It's about getting an attorney that knows about family law and about.
And you got to be careful with those attorneys too, because especially those kinds of attorneys, they're pulling those judgments like from templates off the internet, which is the same thing that a pro per would do.
Yes. Exactly.
And they're chock full of mistakes. Sometimes it's the wrong jurisdiction.
Yeah.
I literally reviewed a judgment, a California judgment that was quoting Washington state law.
Oh my.
Saying that the jurisdiction will be California. And I'm
was
like,
it improper judgment or was it a?
They got this from a divorce attorney. It was literally a template that they pulled off of the internet.
Small practice there.
100% it is. I pointed out the mistake, and then because it was for a prenuptial.
Okay.
Prenuptial, and so I was the reviewer of it, and I was just saying, hey, just so you know, this language is not for the state of California, and there was a bunch of other stuff, but we worked it out because I, suggested different things. You're right. And then the other thing that happens, like for custody and child visitation, if most people that try to craft those agreements and judgment ends up with temporary orders, that are subject to change on a de novo review basis, best interest of the child, as opposed to final orders of judgment, intended to be final orders of judgment, which could only be changed with a significant change in circumstances, which obviously affects the ability to litigate it going forward. There's just a lot of potential pitfalls. It's hard to write a good judgment. Do not make the mistake that you could just do it as good as an attorney because you Googled something. It is not. And please do not do an AI judgment. Those are retarded. They don't work. They don't work. They're always wrong. They're always wrong. AI is really bad at drafting those kinds of judgments. Yes. Trust me. Hey, but you know what? Try it. Maybe it'll work out.
Now, a lot of times too, like you said, you talk yourself. I mean, you talk your clients out of hiring you.
Yeah.
A lot of times when I see that there's like a litigant that understands the process and it's pretty good, I'll just tell them, like, you can start the process on your own. Like, it's the petition, it's the summons service. Just come to me when you get stuck, which is probably going to be either on the financial disclosures or in the judgment. Those are the two main ones. And I'll go ahead and make sure that I get those ready for you. But just be careful, because out there's a lot of people that are hungry for money.
Yeah.
And they'll tell you that they'll do it and that they'll do it right for you and fight for you.
And then they do like the worst job ever. You could have just had like an 18-year-old paralegal do it or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I tell, hey, you could do this, but you don't need me for this. Trust me. This is a very simple petition. If you get stuck, like, here's the forms. They even have instructions on how to fill out the forms. If you get too overwhelmed, I will do it if you want me to. But just know, I think that you might be able to handle it. But anyway, let's move on with this one. I hope that this guy does not do what he's suggesting.
I know.
I'll just say that. All right, moving on. All right, what is the gist of this guy's question? All right. So, wife files for divorce over irreconcilable differences, but I know now it was for someone else. So,
California.
This is a California case, so it doesn't matter. About a month ago, my wife slammed divorce papers in front of me and demanded I sign them. And not to drag my feet, it's like a Bad Suits episode.
I know. That's like one of my biggest pet peeves, when people come to me and they're like, yes, I want the divorce. And they have this idea where divorce is a one signature thing from the beginning.
Oh, I know.
Like the movies. Like, they didn't sign on the divorce. I just want to give them the papers and have them sign off on it.
That's not how that works. Okay. Let's talk about the 6-month cool down period, huh?
And there's nothing to sign in the beginning unless you're signing an acknowledgement form for the summons.
Exactly.
There's nothing. Like the signature comes at the very end. And that is never portrayed in the movies.
Maybe it's like an uncontested judgment or something. They're trying to get them to sign that they have some paralegal draft. But even then, that requires like financial disclosures.
Yes, exactly.
So, but, well, whatever. She had the best of intentions, as they say. She just wanted to be done with him. She was really angry. She really slammed. Don't drag my feet. She blamed it on me looking at girls on the internet.
Just side note, so she's serving her own petition?
Yes, all kinds of wrong. There's all kinds of bad.
That's
right?
another improper service, but yes.
Yeah. So she blamed it on me looking at girls on it. Nobody cares, buddy. California doesn't care, and they don't care about your reasons. Stating I was being unfaithful and just wanting to be done with me. In the beginning, I held on to hope that we could make it work. I wanted to be respectful and nice to her and not make it uglier than it needed to be. I removed my belongings from the home, moved in with my mother in the meantime. She made me believe I was this shitbag husband, that I was terrible, and that I hurt her by looking at other women. Not once did I ever even converse with another woman. I sulked for weeks, believing everything she said. I questioned whether I would ever be good for anyone else. I wanted my wife and our life back. I received a letter from the court for our hearing with a judge over a Zoom call. Yes, apparently we as humans get divorced over Zoom now too. Oh, don't be so dramatic, buddy. It's not that big of a deal.
Status conference.
Yeah, to finalize our divorce in May. Maybe it's like a prove-up hearing or something. I don't know. Or just a bifurcated motion or something.
Maybe, but lately most of the consultations that I've gotten when they have been told that they have to appear via Zoom they're in prepare is because they are doing the status conference because the case is not moving.
Right.
And for some reason they believe that is like because there's this false belief that the court is going to keep track of your divorce and eventually they're going to call you to come to court to divorce you. But no, they only call you to come in if they see that you're not moving your case. And this is when you get like told, you need to appear via Zoom.
Status conference and all that. We figure out tribal issues and ad issue memorandums and all those things. But you're right. And everybody thinks, oh, it's my big day for family court. I'm going to see the judge, and they get dressed in their Sunday best.
Yes.
And they're ready to be officially divorced. And the judge will be something like, well, I guess we're going to have a trial readiness conference in 90 days. But Your Honor, I wanted to get, listen, buddy, you have an attorney. Speak to him. Sometimes that's how it goes. All right. So fast forward to today. My wife recently unblocked me on Facebook. Out of curiosity, I looked at her friends list and I found a new guy.
Oh, God.
I caught my wife texting another guy during our marriage. She told me it was strictly catching up with someone she knew. I was able to confirm this was the same guy she's now friends with on Facebook. On top of that, she removed me from our Duolingo family plan. What is that? Do you know what that is? Duolingo. Oh, okay. They are friends in there as well. He's also friends with her niece, which surprised me how deep it has gotten already. I am now convinced that this was not a divorce based on irreconcilable differences, but a divorce for her to entertain this other man. My wife has been unfaithful to me before our marriage, and I forgave her. My question is, do I just let it all go, or do I drag it on and make it hell for her? After she convinced me everything was my fault and I'm a terrible person, when in fact it was more likely for this new guy. What are your thoughts? What should I do? I think he should refer to my first hypo where I said this. See, this is like why people end up in litigation. I'll just say this. Nobody gives a shit about in the state of California about who did whatever wrong. The question they will ask you is, do you believe that irreconcilable differences have arisen in your marriage such that no amount of counseling or therapy would be able to rectify those differences? And then you answer that, yes. Do you wish to be returned to the state of a single person in the state of California? And if you answer yes to that, that is all they care about. They don't care about who cheated on who. They don't care if she cheated on you with 80 different men. They don't care about you looking at porn on the internet. Nothing. They don't care if you ever conversed with another female. It is none of their business. And here's what's more. This new guy that she has entertained it's really none of your business
Yeah.
either. She could date whoever she wants, and guess what? She's going to, and she doesn't need your permission to do it.
Or approval.
And she doesn't, it doesn't matter what her opinion is of you. She thinks that you're the shitbag husband, whatever. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. The point of the matter is, what difference does definitions make if your marriage is over anyway? You could relitigate it as much as you want. You can go back and talk to your priest. You could talk to your mom about it. You could talk to whoever. Go talk to a therapist. And you guys could, in your minds, replay the events of what led to the demise of your marriage. But it's gone, and there's no resurrecting it, and she's already moved on with some new Facebook Duolingo guy or whatever. And so it's over, buddy. And the quicker that you let it go,
yes,
the better. Because I'll tell you what, the act of following her on social media to try to keep tabs.
And looking into her friends list.
How many children do these people have? Did she say?
I don't think they mention any children.
Well, if they did, I hope they don't have children. But if they did, then all of a sudden, I just don't trust this new guy. I don't want my child to go around her new boyfriends. I don't know who they are. And guess what? The judge will tell you it's none of your business who her new boyfriend is. It's none of your business if she's dating 50 other men. As long as those children are not putting that child in danger, then we're not going to do anything about it. So look, you're wasting your time with this. The divorce is set. The divorce is done. Well, it's in progress, I guess. Get your stuff together. Get yourself a really good therapist. Go find one of your best male friends or groups or whatever and go have a night out. Go to the adult entertainment center of your choice where people decide that it's clothing optional. Go and find yourself a girlfriend. Go and, go live, man. Hey, there's a lot of freedom in being single. Do not waste it on despair over a failed marriage and a woman who no longer wants you. It is time to go discover America. And the quicker that you're able to do that, the happier you're going to be. And this divorce will be but a momentary blip on an otherwise fruitful and productive and hopefully eventful life. And you will live happily ever after. And that's all I have to say for Duolingo guy. Any final parting words for him?
I don't know. Just get over it. Get over it. I mean, these are the types of cases or like consultations that I get, and I have to like really think what I'm gonna say before it comes out of my mouth, because I don't want to come out as rude, but it's like I don't have a lot of patience at the same time. Well,
you got things to do. You got to work.
No.
I mean, as they're talking, you're in your mind putting together all the things you got to do to finalize this guy's divorce, and he's over here talking about Facebook and stuff.
Yes. No.
Yeah. Hey, unfortunately, man, you're gonna have to grow a pair. I don't know if that is appropriate to say anymore in 24, but hey, you got to get over it, man. At some point.
Let's just leave it at get over it.
Yeah. It's time to move on. Let us move on before I get myself in any more trouble than I'm already in. All right. STBXH doesn't want to pay alimony. What is that? STBXH. Soon to be ex-husband doesn't want to pay alimony because it's my fault I don't make more. So in a formal letter from what state is this case? I think this is California. In a formal letter from his lawyer, my soon-to-be ex-husband of over 20 years doesn't feel he needs to pay any spousal support because it's my fault. I make less because I chose to stay in a job that was flexible and paid less to let me keep the kids out of daycare until they were in school. He feels I have a degree and could make as much as him if I wanted to, and always could have. We have 4 kids. The youngest is 6, and I am the one who is with them during the summer as I work from home, so no daycare is needed. I stay home with them when they are sick from school or have school holidays because of my flexible schedule. This let me have a job where he sometimes traveled up to weeks at a time away from home. What should I do? I don't know. How would you advise this young lady?
But what does she mean by what should I do? I mean, he doesn't want to pay alimony.
Yeah, first of all, so
go forward and, I don't know, contact an attorney to see if you actually have.
Let's go through the 4320 factors. Yeah. What I would say is it's not up to him whether or not he gets to pay alimony. He could think whatever he wants. Look, there is a 300-year history of alimony in the United States as it pertains to the destruction of a divorce. There's very specific rules that they've come up with over 300 years of evolving case law on the matter. And you can find their conclusions. There's 15 different factors that go into it. It's under Family Code section 4320. And when you'll often hear judges in California refer to a 4320 trial. That's when they're literally trying to figure out what the amount of alimony is going to be, if anything at all.
Or 4320 factors. They mention that a lot. And I see a lot of self-represented litigants go like, what? Like, what are they referring to? But
yes, it's a very lengthy statute in the state of California. And just to give you an idea, I will read some of it.
I think Form 157.
Yes.
They kind of list them.
The actual statute says the extent in ordering spousal support under this part, the court shall consider all of the following circumstances. And it lists A through N. It says the extent to which the earning capacity of each party is sufficient to maintain the standard of living established during the marriage. So that means a triable issue is going to be, did you live a middle-class lifestyle? Was it upper middle class? Did you guys take trips often? What was your entertainment expenses like? All this, your lifestyle.
Credit card use, ability to save for retirement.
Yes, all of those things. They take into account the marketable skills of the supported party, the extent to which the supported party's present or future earning capacity is impaired by periods of unemployment. And look, it's a really boring, long statute.
Yes, it is.
But I'll tell you what, it came about from this. It was mostly the circumstance when they were writing these laws that the male would be the primary breadwinner. The wife would stay home and watch the kids and tend to the house. And he, because of her support and watching the children, would have the ability to pursue a full-on career. And he would go on and would have this successful business, and he would be making all of this money because of her help and allowed him to pursue this career. And then he would decide that he's going to date a much younger woman, 20 years his junior or more or less, and decide, you know what? I think I'm going to get myself a new wife. And then he would kick the current wife to the curb with the children and for the purposes of moving in his mistress or whatnot. Well, California deemed that unfair. They say that if by virtue of your wife's contributions, her sacrifices, her sacrificing her own career and wishes and dreams, she chose to stay home with the children so that you could advance in your career to a position of great stature and wealth. She is going to be compensated in the form of alimony for all of her troubles. It's not like, oh, she just gave up 20 years of her life for this effing guy. She's then kick her to the curb and now she's left with nothing. It's based in equity. That's what it's about. So regardless of what his opinion is about your ability to make money or you should earn more or it's your fault, well, they cover that in the 4320 factors. So you said something really important. You said, I chose to stay in a job that was flexible and paid less to let me keep the kids out of daycare until they were in school. And interestingly, this is in a formal letter from his lawyer. I'm curious what the actual letter said. But if it's the case that you stayed home and maintained a job that allowed you to save on daycare, and daycare is not cheap.
No.
How many kids did they say? 4 kids.
Oof.
4 kids of daycare. That's like $2,500 a month in
More.
daycare expenses. Probably more, right?
25 is like 1.5 a kid. It's like $3,000 for two nowadays. That's easily $4,000 or $5,000 in a month.
Honestly, it's like a job. It's income by itself. So you're saving on that income. You may or may not be working or be making that much money by yourself in the job that you have because it's flexible and probably a part-time job or whatever. And so let's just say, for argument's sake, that you are working and you're no longer saving money on that daycare cost. Well, you still got to take care of the children. So now you're losing that money. And oftentimes you'll see in these child support hearings like, well, I'll make her work if you want to, but she's able to stay home with the kids. I'm going to make you pay for half the daycare expenses.
Exactly.
So what do you want to do, buddy? And we got to factor those things in. So just the fact that she says that, he feels I have a degree and could make as much as, hey, look, degrees are not honestly worth all that much.
Yeah.
They're really not. Undergrad degrees do not carry the same weight as they used to even 15 years ago. I tell my daughter, she's about to go to college, and I tell her that, look, man, it used to be the case that you needed to have this to make money, be successful. You really don't need a college degree anymore. You go start a business. You could go start a TikTok business, like a drop shipping or something. I bet you make more than like a part-time $7 an hour. It's not $7 an hour anymore, but whatever minimum wage would be. And you're not limited by this. And so anyway, I've had those discussions with her, but yeah, look, it's not up to him whether or not he's going to pay you alimony. If his attorney is sending you that letter, then let him. Those are triable issues. And I guarantee a lot of the things that the judge is going to take into account is exactly what you said. Your sacrifice that has allowed him to make what he makes for you to even be able to ask for alimony. So for all of you people that are listening to this and say, oh, well, that's not fair. Well, then don't get married. Or sign a prenup where alimony is not a thing. Because I agree, it's not. It doesn't seem fair when you're going through it, but when you consider those circumstances, I understand the reasons why it is. It's a law of equity. This person just gave 10, 15, 20 years of their life to you so you could succeed. And now you want to move on, and what's she left with? She's just holding the bag? And so if you don't want to do that, then write up a prenuptial agreement that takes all those things into account, and then you won't have to worry about it. But in this case, hey, I would just say fight it out in court. Do the 4320 hearing. Maybe that attorney will entertain settlement offers or proposals for alimony amounts. I don't know. I would not settle if I were you. Just take it to trial. See what you get. You're going to end up with a temporary spousal support anyway, and then you're going to have to litigate stuff. He's going to have to do discovery to figure out what your earning capacity is. You're going to do discovery about him for the same reasons, and then you guys are inevitably going to end up in a trial. Ask for the judge to make him pay your attorney fees as well, since he's so insistent that you have to work and he wants to impugn your income. Do it. Yeah. See what happens. But that's all I really have to say to her about that. Let us move on. We'll do one or two more.
Okay.
All right. So what time you got to get out of here?
Probably 1:30.
All right, we'll do one more. All right. This person is asking, what was the immediate changes for you after the decision to divorce was made? It says, either if you were the one informing your partner you wanted a divorce, or if you got told. Did anything change for you right away? I can speak from my client's perspective that the moment that the other party is served with papers, everything changes. There's going to be an extreme emotional reaction one way or the other, unless it's already well established that this is an inevitable.
And even still, I have had clients where like they're aware that the case is being filed. Yeah. And it's not until they actually get the documents that it's like shocking. Yeah.
I mean, well, because now it's real. Now we're doing this, I guess. And so, it's one thing to talk about it. But yeah, as soon as that happens, look, there's a couple things that happen. If you guys are living in the same house, which is most of the time, are you going to stay living there during your divorce? What's that going to look like? Do you got a place to go? Does he or she have a place to go? And what are we going to do with the kids? The air in the house is going to become heavy and dense.
Or you get the finances going to be divided or not? Or are they going to continue?
Every time you go out and leave, that you're going to be questioned about who are you with, even though you guys aren't really together no more. You're living together. It's going to be, oh, you're such a whore and you're this and that. And I've had those cases.
Yep.
They lead to restraining orders usually because one person loses their mind. It's a shocking psychological exercise to go through a divorce. It is such an attack on your ego, because think about it. It's like, it's not just the two parties involved. It's not like a breakup. You guys' families are married.
Yes.
And so now all of your friends and confidants that were on your partner's side of the family, you can't trust them anymore because they might be forced to take a side. And it's not that they don't want to take your side. And, they might even sympathize with you, but they're not going to speak out against their brother or their son or their, family member or close friend. And so you've lost those friends. And same goes for your family as respect to him. And now it's no longer just the parties arguing and going back and forth. It's the families that are now bickering. If there's children, the grandparents often have very intense feelings about how custody and visitation should go. And that's going to greatly influence whether you guys end up with a settlement with respect to custody and visitation, or we have to go to trial over something, because nobody could agree on anything. So you're going through all of that. And then knowing that this person that you just gave your entire self to for a number of years, that is this major chapter of your life, is no longer your confidant, but they are your enemy, regardless of whether or not they stated explicitly or not. It is now the matter of the insert last name here. You are a petitioner, or he's petitioner, or he or she, and you are respondent, or vice versa. It's you versus them. And you guys are both in a fight for the preservation of your rights. And the definition of those rights is where the litigation happens. And there's going to be a lot of bad blood that comes out. There's going to be a lot of distrust. And I don't think I've ever had a case where my clients didn't think that the other party was hiding something or lying about something.
Oh, yeah.
And so immediately,
the trust is immediately gone.
You're literally changing the brain chemistry of yourself. There's something that happens when you go into a new relationship. There's something that happens in your brain neurologically, that a release of chemicals that causes you to attach to a person. That same chemical reaction occurs at separation, out of your brain's necessity to survive. So it's now tearing you away from them, and there's either going to be an extreme indifference and all of this pain and suffering, major depressive disorder, and whatever disorders. You're going to have a lot of angst, a lot of insecurity, a lot of trust issues. You're going to be damaged.
Yeah.
That's the reality of going through a divorce. So continuing on with this hypo, for the past 10 to 15 years, maybe even longer, it's been extremely rare for me to remember dreams. Maybe one every 6 months that I'd remember, usually something other than sex. But it's now been a week since I told my soon-to-be ex I wanted a divorce. And since then, I've had countless sex dreams, and I actually remember all of them. Well, I can't really help you with that, but...
this is not where I thought it was going.
I don't know what to say to that. Well, I can't say it's not been fun and exciting waking up to, but it's a bit odd how the mind works. I stopped remembering dreams long before I met my wife, and now, wait a minute. Oh, I'm still thinking this was a female from the other. So this is the guy.
So this is the guy, okay.
Yeah. I stopped remembering dreams long before I met my wife, and now that I decided to divorce her, I suddenly start remembering again. Well, I think that's part of your brain's response to the trauma of going through the divorce process itself. So, and that's all I really wanted to talk about. Hey, is it weird for you too? Yeah, going through divorce it's shitty. There's a lot of changes, especially with your mental health. And this guy's experiencing it, and it's manifesting in these dreams that he's having. That's fine. But look, it's not going to be over quickly. And You just got to write it out. And the quicker that you could move on and start a brand new chapter, the quicker your brain will be able to normalize itself and find stability, because ultimately that's what your brain is searching for. When you go into the brand new relationship, you have this weird release of hormones, and it takes a while before you're normal again. Same thing at divorce. Same thing. But it will pass. And eventually you'll go back to not remembering anything, and you'll find somebody else that will cause you to forget your dreams. And hopefully it doesn't end in a divorce again. Maybe you don't even get remarried. Nobody said you had to. But that's all I have to really say to that guy. We got, well, it's like 114. I got two other ones perspective. Which one should we choose? I'm 30 female. My husband is 30. Together about 5 years married. No kids. All right. We'll do this one. This will be the last one.
Okay.
I think this one is more for you. I'll let you answer this one because I feel like I'm talking too much.
Okay.
As usual. Okay, so I'm a 30-year-old female. My husband is a 30-year-old male. Together about 5 years married. For 3, no kids. I love my husband with every piece of my heart. But I'm just not sure we're compatible anymore. I expressed to him that I'm unhappy and suggested couples therapy, to which he said no. He doesn't see anything wrong in the relationship. My question here is, how did you decide it was time to leave? I'm specifically asking folks whose ex didn't do anything astronomically bad to them, which makes leaving harder. Oh, that's a good one. What do you think? What would you say to her?
Well, when you're not happy and you're not able to fix it, I understand that she's not happy. She already communicated that to the other party. And I guess he doesn't see anything wrong, but obviously there's something wrong in there because she's not happy. They need to figure out why she's not happy, if it has to do with him or if it has to do with something else. If he's not willing to at least explore that, just leave. Why are you going to stay in a marriage where you're not happy? Like,
well, I will answer it from this perspective. Nobody said you're going to be happy during marriage.
Well, that too, yeah.
That's not part of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't get to be happy the entire time.
But I'm thinking like the way that she's writing this is like, it's not where we had an incident and I'm not happy with this. It seems to me like
in general, she's not happy.
Like,
yeah.
She realized like maybe this is not what she was.
Well,
I don't know.
I mean, they don't have any kids together.
No.
She's a youngster. Them together 5 years, so they're together at 25. I mean, they're relatively old enough to be able to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, 5 years is not a long time to be together with anybody. They've only been married for 3 years.
3.
That's a short-term marriage. I guess if you really want to get rid of the guy, then do it now. But look, it seems like a pretty straightforward divorce. I'll just caution this when it comes to getting married. When you make the decision to get married to somebody, you're committing to somebody for the rest of your life. You're 100% all in. And that means necessarily that you're accepting the best of that person and the worst of that person. And there's going to be like, you know, the highs and the lows, and 90% of it is going to be the malaise of the gray areas. You're going to lose the excitement. Look, you're not going to be all that excited to be with somebody the rest of your life. That goes away pretty quickly after the newness draws off. And you marry somebody and you're accepting all of their best and all of their worst. Like Jordan Peterson says, right down to the snakes. I also heard the smartest piece of marriage advice I've ever heard was that marriage is never a 50-50 thing. It's never 50-50. Like you sometimes don't have 50% to give to your partner. Sometimes they got to carry the 90% because there's going to be times that you need them to carry the 90%. It's always this give and the take. And you build up good equity with your partner. And if this is not the love of your life and you got married for all the wrong reasons, to take the Instagram photo shoot and all that, and now it's done, and you were never that in love with him to begin with because you're still relatively young at 25 to be even making that call, but you did it anyway. You know, fine. But if you have designs on this, look, you're going to get rid of this guy. you're going to meet some other guy, and you have to make a decision to yourself. Is it just that you don't want to be married to somebody? Is it just that you don't want to be that committed to somebody where you have to be happy all the time? Because it's an unrealistic expectation to suggest that one person is going to 100% keep you entertained. Marriage is boring by nature. Marriage is a whole lot of bad. It's a whole lot of dirty. It's a whole lot of waking up early and getting the kids ready and cooking dinner and keeping the house clean and hanging out and spending time together when you just want your alone time. It's a lot of putting up with things that you wouldn't have to put up, but you guys live together and you're married now, and you have to figure out a way to do it. And so, look, if you can't make it work with this guy, and you said there's nothing wrong per se with him, you mentioned incompatibility, fine. I think she said he doesn't want to go to couples therapy. Couples therapy. What is a couples therapist going to say? You have a higher opinion of couples therapy than I do, I feel like. I tend to agree that couples therapy is worthless, but I feel like that's most males' opinions. You have to understand that most men don't deal with things by talking to a therapist. We have very different ways of dealing with stuff. And if you just sit down and talk with a guy and you tell him what's wrong, most of the time it's not that they're unwilling to change. It's just they're unable to express or communicate with you in a way that you find acceptable. Like, that was an example for me. Like, sometimes I could not express emotion with my wife or with my children in a way that was inviting for them. And so I had to change the way that I communicated with them. Therapy for me was valuable in that regard. But in terms of fixing your relationship, what do you think they're going to do? Like, what is the incompatibilities? They're not going to be with you while you're living together. You're going to sit there for like an hour a week, and they're going to talk about what's going on with you, what's going on with him. How do you feel about it? What did he do wrong? What do you guys want to talk about? And, it's going to help or it's hurt. Maybe it helps in the moment. Maybe it gives you guys new perspectives.
It's not going to fix every relationship. It's not a magic wand. It helps, I think, in certain situations, just like the one that you gave an example of, where a lot of times it's just about understanding how the other person communicates or how the other person perceives how you communicate, stuff like that. But there's also like couples where they're just incompatible. Like,
true.
There's nothing that, it was just a completely bad match from the beginning, and they just need somebody to tell them, this is not gonna work. And that might be the case, but she has to make that call for him. You start talking about compatibility. I mean, look, I don't think I've ever seen a couple that's 100% compatible with each other. Every marriage, even the successful ones, there are measures of incompatibility at every level. I'll just say this. This is, she says that they're 25 or?
They're 30. They met at 25. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's also at that age, what I've seen a lot is that they're still growing, but they don't grow together.
Yeah.
And they start liking different things that, although you don't have to, of course, like the same thing as your partner, they make it very compatible. I don't know, maybe one likes to go out a lot and the other one likes to stay at home, and they don't make the compromise where there's a balance in there. And that's maybe where she sees like they're incompatible right now. That may
be it. But I guess that's the thing. I mean, look, you're not always going to, do you even go out anymore with your husband like that? Like what you used to in your 20s? You're going to like the clubs and stuff. And
so that's what I talk about balance. Like, of course, we used to go a lot. Like it was like every Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We can't do that anymore, but at least we try to make time to at least every now and then do it, because he's the one that mainly likes to go out. And then, of course, I'm more like a homey type of person, so I guess he stays home when if it was his choice, he would just be out every single day. So it's that balance. But I have heard of couples where it goes to the extreme where, no, we're not going to go out anymore because we're married at all. Or we still need to go out every single day because this is what we did when we met. So
I guess my word of caution for this young lady is, look, make sure it's a compatibility. If you want to get divorced, nobody's going to fault you for that, and you can do it relatively easy. But The therapy will help. Maybe you just got to have a question that, look, this is inevitably going to end in divorce if we don't go to at least couples therapy. It's the last thing I'm willing to try. If you're not even willing to try that with me, then there's no reason to continue. Have that conversation with them. Because I'll tell you what, if you guys were compatible before, when you guys are both 25, you're pretty close to full brain development. There's not a whole lot of change that occurs between 25 and 27. Not a whole lot. There is some. But I'm just going to say, if you were compatible for 2 or 3 years when you got married and now all of a sudden you're not compatible, perhaps it's not a compatibility issue. Perhaps it's just a change in circumstance. And look, when you're married, finances are an issue. Children are not an issue with them. But the lifestyle, the pressures of being the breadwinner, if he's the breadwinner, the pressures of maintaining a successful household is shocking on the brain. Don't misinterpret the shock for incompatibility before exploring whether or not maybe it's just an adjustment period. Because if you're wrong, now look, you can cut cords and maybe we never have to find out. But it's also possible that maybe you guys just got to learn how to be together again in the context of marriage. It's easy to be together when you're not married. It's really hard to be married to somebody and still maintain that balance because there's no hiding the snakes when you're married. You see it all. Your husband has seen the absolute worst of you that nobody will ever see. And you've seen the worst of him.
Oh, yeah.
And same with myself and my wife. And that's for you guys to deal with, for nobody else, right? But you also, in discovering those snakes, it's not a matter of incompatibility, maybe. Maybe it's just a matter of you've seen the snakes and now you're either going to find out a coping mechanism to deal with them and accept them because you promised that's what you were going to do, or it's just not for you. And if it's not for you with this guy, then hey, maybe it's just not for you ever. Because I promise you, there's never going to be a guy that is going to keep you happy every second of your life. And I go back to what she said, the very first thing. I love my husband with every piece of my heart. You don't say something like that without having at one time found compatibility with him.
I think also like when I hear this message, I think it maybe also comes from this idea where you only get divorced if the other party did something wrong to you.
Yeah.
And you can't just simply fall out of love or, I don't know, one day decide, you know what, I made a mistake. And maybe she feels guilty because of that. And it happens.
You mean like she like stepped out on the marriage or something?
No, just simply like...
Oh, you mean, I'm sorry, made a mistake in like choosing the person.
Choosing the person or marrying the person in general, I mean...
Sure, maybe that's the case. Maybe that's the case. I'm just kind of reading between the lines with this first sentence here. Because I agree with you. And so I will not hesitate to tell someone, oh yeah, definitely get a divorce. I think most of my cases, these things that we do, yeah, just freaking leave. It's a big deal. Go. It's done. This one, I'm just not so sure. And then there's not a whole lot of other evidence to suggest. Yeah, fairly young. Nobody's going to penalize you for getting a divorce now. But my brotherly advice to her, or my fatherly advice to her would be, you know what, get yourself on birth control for sure for the next 2 or 3 years. If he is not invested in you enough to engage in couples therapy, even over his objections, then F that guy. Divorce him. But maybe he is. And maybe you lay down that ultimatum and he's still all in and committed to you, and then he does. You might just end up, 50 years down the road finding out that it wasn't a compatibility issue, it was just an adjustment issue, and they're not the same. So that's what I got to say about this one. Any closing thoughts for her?
No.
All right.
Well, yeah.
Do it.
Even if he doesn't want to participate, maybe just she can go to therapy a couple of times just to maybe try to figure out what she's feeling, because it seems like she's confused to me. So maybe that will help her figure out what she's actually feeling for him. If she's feeling actual love, like as in a marriage, or maybe it's love as a friend, I don't know, something like that, and go from there.
I caution against that kind of thinking, though. Well, just because, look, you're the one that wanted to get married. I mean, look, I guess what I'm getting at is she's already said there's nothing wrong with this guy. So it's either
it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is maybe she just doesn't like the idea of being married.
Yeah.
Because marriage requires sacrifice and going to therapy and, reconciling to yourself your thoughts and feelings or desires. Well, in a successful marriage, you oftentimes set those aside because of the marriage. It's the sacrifice that comes with it. That's what's required of a successful marriage. You don't get to do what you want or feel what you want in a marriage. Oftentimes, men and women put themselves out in a position to sacrifice their feelings and desires and wants and time and comfort for their family because that's what they committed to. And it's a daunting exercise to ask for anybody. And if your temporary mental displeasure born about by your inability to sacrifice for that purpose, if that's the case, then hey, maybe it's just not this guy, it's just the marriage idea. You can be friends with that guy, just don't be married. Get divorced now and just never get married again unless you reconcile to yourself that you're willing to undergo those sacrifices of your personal comfort. Not to say that it's all going to be sacrifice. There's going to be the happy times, but hey, there's going to be the malaise as well. And if you can't make the adjustment and still at 30, you're just getting out of your 20s. You're still young. You're still of that mindset. Yeah. And so, but I guarantee you, when you're 40, life is going to slow down and speed up all at the same time. And, you got rid of this guy when you were 30 because of your temporary discomforts. But in your 40s, he might have been perfect for you. And you'll never know because he couldn't sacrifice at 30. So I don't want to tell her one way or the other. I just say I would give him one more ultimatum. If he's not willing to make that very simple sacrifice, then F that guy. But if he is, hey, I'm just suggesting. I'm not against her wanting to get divorced. I'm just suggesting. Perhaps give it a year. Just one. Just one. And if you're not feeling it, hey, if you're not feeling it after 6 months or you're just reconciled, then just, leave it. But do it before you have kids.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And we will leave it at that. Okay, we have to address something, Ileana.
What happened?
We made a promise to our subscribers.
Here you go.
That once we hit 10,000 subscribers, that we were going to do various things. Yes. I was called out by one of our commenters, only one, but I agreed with her. She's like, it's really creepy that you would tell any woman to dye her hair unless she absolutely wanted to. And then I commented back, it wasn't even my idea, it was her idea. And then you're like, was it your idea? Or my idea? I was like, I thought it was. I don't know if it was or not, but you said I dye my hair all the time. So I thought that, I don't know, but you're right.
I think you mentioned it, and I think I probably said like it wasn't a big deal for me because I had done it before. I know it wasn't my idea in terms of this is what I'm going to do if we get to the 10,000, but it's not something that I guess it was that damaging, I guess.
I will tell you what, we're not going to do the hair dye thing anymore, but we do have to modify the contract a little bit. Okay. We will deem it unenforceable, that clause. And we're going to modify it as follows. You are going to sing one verse of the Spanish song of your choice. Okay. And you're going to record it over karaoke music if you want, or an instrumental. I don't know. A gentle lullaby. And you're going to forward that audio to Dominic. I am going to do the same thing. And he is going to put it together and in his producer magic, turn it into a special treat for our loyal subscribers that will be played at the end of next week's episode after our standard 2.5 hour long form podcast. And that's how we are going to make good on our promises to our subscribers. Are you prepared for this?
I don't know. Oh God, I think I would rather dye my hair.
We've taken it off the table. Okay. So we are making this contract without any undue influence or duress. We're not under duress. Nobody's forcing us. Nobody's making us. But we are agreeing to these provisions. Do you accept these terms? It could be literally a 15-second verse.
And you just record.
Song of your choice.
Not video, right?
Not live. Okay, I'll tell you what. When we hit 100,000 subscribers. Now, I'm saying this for a specific reason. When I said 10,000, it would literally meant the growth of our channel by like 10 times. I never thought it was going to happen. And it happened like a couple months later.
Yeah.
So when we hit 100,000, it represents the growth of another times 10.
Yes.
And we will full on perform a duo karaoke performance of.
But if we do the singing now, we need to do something different than for the 100.
Okay.
Dance then.
Well, we could talk about the 100,000 thing. It doesn't have to be singing. It doesn't have to, we'll figure out something. It'll be some kind of a special episode that we enjoy with our subscribers. Maybe we'll host like a local live or something and people could just come and party with us like it's some rented out venue. And it could be like the Tilted Lawyer podcast, 100,000 subscribers celebration with Omar and Ileana and performing live in, Whitney Houston. I will always love you.
Oh my.
All right.
I need like a couple of drinks to be able to.
If in a couple months we're at 100,000, that's really the only time you would have to worry about it.
Oh my.
But for right now, it'll be a recording, a clip, all right? It'll come out on next week's episode at the very tail end. So only our loyal subscribers or people that are really fans of our show will have reason to listen to.
Okay.
Deal? Is it a contract? I need you to say it. I need you to say the words.
I guess deal.
Ileana, has anybody forced you or made any undue promises to the effect that if you didn't agree to this promise that something bad would happen?
No.
So you're making this statement free of duress?
I do.
Undue influence?
None.
Okay. Counsel, do you join? Join. All right. Let us end here. For all of you.
Don't forget the email.
Oh, by the way, if you wanted us to review your family law hypothetical, email me at tiltedlawyer@gmail.com where I will review your hypothetical and me and Ileana will analyze it the way that we've been doing it on our Family Law After Dark episodes in full. Also, if you have any show ideas or stuff that you just want us to look at, send us an email to that specific email address. Dominic will flash it on the screen and it'll be linked down below. Also, if you are in need of producing or video editing needs, don't hesitate to contact our producer, Dominic. Dominic, who is responsible for our videos looking and sounding so good because of all of his expertise. And with that said, we will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.